My grandfather said it was up here in the attic. Wow, that's nice. I remember hearing it as the sun went down, off in another room or outside in the backyard. Going to Grandpa's house meant hearing the accordion. When you wear an old instrument, you wonder how many people have played it.
I started when I was a kid, and the accordion's been good to me. It's been a big part of my life.
Accordions here?
For some in the United States today, accordion players are thought to be a little out of the mainstream.
If you're lost in the desert and you see a pink elephant and a good accordion player, which one do you ask for directions? And the answer is the pink elephant, because a good accordion player is a figment of your imagination.
Gary Larson had a great one, you know. Welcome to heaven, here's your harp. Welcome to hell, here's your accordion, you know.
Though for many the accordion is simply a musical joke, others have a completely different opinion. In Superior, Wisconsin, there's an accordion museum housing over 2,000 rare and historic instruments. It is the creation of Helmy Harrington, a musician who's started teaching accordion repair and who now runs this unusual museum.
The museum is unique in the United States. There are so many people drawn just to the visual and sound elements of the instruments. Most of the people we get are folks who are aficionados, who've played in former times, people who have a penchant to look for unusual things in an area that they're visiting as tourists, and we are regional, local, and a national attraction. I guess I'm most proud of the fact that we draw scholars from the musicological studies, from the historical studies, from chronology and taxonomy studies.
And in Cotati, California, there's an annual 2-day festival devoted to the accordion. Surrounding the bronze statue of festival founder Jim Boggio, accordions are played, bought and sold, and joyously celebrated.
All my friends are accordionists.
So, what is an accordion really?
It is a wind instrument played by hands.
And it's a whole orchestra in one.
And it's its own accompaniment. In other words, you can accompany yourself.
You can treat it as the orchestral accompaniment behind singers, guitar players, lead horn players.
It has a certain sort of old world poetry about it that, despite its youth, it's already this sort of, antique voice from another era.
It's an instrument that makes people happy. You walk into a room playing an accordion, people automatically just start to smile.
They're a breathing, and they're portable churches. They're like these little portable churches.
Let's go back to the real origin of the accordion, a Chinese mouth organ.
Chinese mouth organ is one of oldest instruments in the world, and they have different sizes from 13 pipes to 37 pipes. And this one in my hand is a kind of 17 pipes and instrument. And when I take up the one piece of this bamboo, you can see they have a reed. And on the other side, you can see you have a little hole here. That's for your finger. When you play it, your finger cover on that, blowing.
The dream of a portable organ has persisted through the centuries. Here we see the aptly named portative, which was a very small pipe organ. In old medieval paintings, the portative could often be seen as symbolizing music itself. A later portable organ, and one that used reeds, was known as the Bible Regal. It was called that because everything could be folded away into a Bible-shaped box for carrying. There were other bellow and reed organs as well, but many of these models were hardly portable. Still, something resembling our modern squeezebox is a relatively recent construction. The first use of the word accordion was by Cyril Damian of Vienna in his patent of 1829, shown here. His invention could produce several three-note chords by pressing one of 5 buttons. Damian described the intention of his accordion.
Even an amateur of music can play the loveliest and most moving chords with very little practice. It is so easy and comfortable to carry, it should be a welcome invention for travelers.
As legend has it, in the early 1860s, a pilgrim from Austria passed through the territory of Castelfidardo, Italy, on his way to a local shrine. He stopped at the house of farmer Antonio Soprani. The family welcomed the pilgrim and took him in for the night. After dinner, the pilgrim played for them on a curious musical instrument that no one in the Soprani household had seen or heard before. It caught the attention of Antonio's 19-year-old son, Paolo. As a gift for their hospitality, the pilgrim gave his accordion to Paolo. The young man was overjoyed. He immediately disassembled the instrument and studied how it was built. The next year, Paolo and his brothers had built a number of accordions and proceeded to sell them at fairs to other pilgrims. And from this point on, the Italian accordion industry blossomed.
The masters in Italy are still producing accordions, and they're 4 and 5 generations deep now.
Giuseppe Ronco is a true craftsman who knows how to build an accordion from scratch.
Guarda che roba. E da allora, visto che è bello aperto, quindi il suono può sfogare, l'ho adattato e su tutte le mie faccio quel disegno lì. Sto qua sopra.
Ah, ecco.
Adesso questo qui viene traforato.
A mano,
sì, sì.
Ah,
è alluminio,
alluminio.
alluminio con la celluloide, no? E ricoperto di celluloide. Lo apro così e stacco questi legni, va messo sotto la pressa e va pressato. Proprio tirato, perché sennò alla fine questo qui rimane più spesso e le pieghe rimarrebbero distanziate. Questo viene agganciato assieme. Questa è la soniera finita.
There's more parts in an accordion than any other instrument, more than a piano.
But even in the big factories, accordions are mostly hand-built.
This summer I was actually able to visit the Weltmeister factory in Germany, and I had talked with them beforehand and they had given me permission to film. They had logs with the bark still on them of wood that apparently is grown within a few miles of the factory. That's kiln dried and then sawed down to make the reed blocks, the bodies of the accordions. All the sanding, the jigs, the whole rooms were full of all the equipment used to do the individual parts of the accordions, like sanding the radiuses. I actually got to see them apply celluloid. It looks like a sheet of rubber when they first pull it out, and I thought it was something that would take hours, and it took all of about less than 10 minutes to skin one side of an instrument. After it's applied, there's high spots where it's overlapping and it's lumpy and there might be wrinkles, and so it's scraped down to get a generally smooth finish. And then the next step is to buff it down on a big buffing wheel. Bellow building, I saw that being done. They had been using the same bellows frame for building the bellows for something in upward of 50 years. Individually making a set of bellows is a very time-consuming process. Assembling the bass machine, person had like a big rack that had all the buttons. Watch the tuning done. There was a room where they used an oscilloscope, and a woman sat there and she would tune it and then flip it over and tune it and then go on to the next reed, and then she would just go through and pre-tune all the reeds before they were even waxed in the blocks. And so then the master tuner would, after the accordion was assembled, had an air table that allowed him to play the instruments while the blocks were inside, and then he would spot tune the instrument, do the final tuning on it.
Das stimmt, Zug.
This is a reed block out of an accordion. As you can see, it looks just like a great big harmonica. The reeds only need air to pass through them in order to make them vibrate, unlike an instrument like a saxophone or a clarinet, where the musician has to manipulate the reed with his mouth in order to create the pitch and the tone and so forth that he wants.
Because the reeds vibrate freely in a column of air, accordions are called free reed instruments. The reeds are the voice of the instrument, and the quality and cut of the reeds, to a large extent, determines the price. The reeds are made of special spring steel and number over 400 in a full-size accordion. They are mounted on wooden blocks, often using a mixture of beeswax and resin to seal any air leaks.
The bellows are the secret of the instrument. To me, that's where I play. I play everything in the bellows.
If you want to bring some violence to your playing, that sort of thing, it's all done with the bellows.
Well, the bellows to the accordion is like the lungs are to the singer.
So what it is essentially a portable reed organ. The small version is the harmonica. The big version is the pump organ, which you might see in somebody's house or in a church 100 years ago. And this is the portable version, and it has been adapted all over the world for different kinds of music.
Sea shanties, for instance, might be played on the concertina.
Yeah, we gather here once a month on the Balclutha, this historic ship, to sing songs of the sea, work songs of the sea that are sea shanties that would have been used pulling the ropes, and I bring my concertina along.
A concertina is very portable and became a favorite of immigrants traveling on boats to other lands. The concertina was invented by British scientist Charles Wheatstone.
Wheatstone devised a small device that had buttons on it. You'd blow in it and had little buttons that you could make a tune.
The Symphonium of 1829 was a mouth harmonica, but it was only a matter of time before Wheatstone substituted a bellows to supply air, and in 1844 he was granted a patent for his bellows instrument named concertina.
This is the English concertina that has the same note in and out, very similar to a piano accordion. The other kind of concertina that's played is called the Anglo concertina.
What I'm playing is an Anglo concertina. It's different from the English concertina in that it's a diatonic instrument, or you'll get a different note on push and pull. The same key will give you two notes. It'll give a lilt to the music as opposed to a very melodic sound that the English will give. This gives a bounce.
When it was first invented, they envisioned it being used for string quartets. Music like that. There was a formal body of concertina music in the latter part of the 19th century. There was quite a popular parlor instrument among the upper classes in England as things died out and the radio came on to popularity and people moved on to more popular ballroom musics. The concertina fell away in popularity, and then the poor people took up the instrument to accompany folk song.
This is a concertina, but it is referred to as a Chemnitzer, spelled Chemnitzer, because that's where the original concertina was built, in Chemnitzer, Germany. Most of the guys learned this by memorizing the numbers along the keys, and that's the way concertina music is written, has numbers on it. And if you don't know anything about music and you memorize the numbers, then you can play it. You can play any one of these songs.
The size and shape of the Chemnitzer is used in another free reed instrument, the Bandoneon.
The Bandoneon was developed primarily in Germany for small churches that didn't have an organ or couldn't use an organ, and so it was developed for that kind of purpose, to play church literature. And then somehow it ended up in Argentina with the German immigrants, and the Argentinians took it on as their national instrument to play the tango.
One of the unique things about the bandoneon is the wide dynamic range it has, and also its ability to get short staccato accents.
Though concertinas are closely related free reed instruments, when someone in the United States hears the word accordion, they'll probably think of this, the so-called piano accordion.
There were piano accordion factories all over the United States, particularly New York, the Midwestern cities like Detroit and Chicago, and San Francisco arguably was the biggest center of piano accordion production in the United States.
The first piano keyboard on an accordion in the United States was made by my grandfather, Colombo, and carried his name. That was in 1909.
But how did the piano accordion become so popular here?
In an age before the internet, before television, before radio, before sound movies, people went to the vaudeville shows. And there was the vaudeville theater, and they had every weekend, different shows that were in town, and the performers, these acts would travel from town to town by train.
Vaudeville means variety anyhow. You can see any kind of an act in vaudeville.
But the accordion became very prominent when Guido Darrow began performing vaudeville in 1910. And he was such a great performer, he was a great entertainer, he was a virtuoso, he was incredibly handsome man, the women just loved him, that he was billed as the headliner, the last on the show. No one could follow him, he was so good.
This is a time in which, in vaudeville, accordions become big business in America. Vaudeville helps to establish the importance of the instrument by spotlighting perhaps immigrant folks who couldn't make or didn't make a living in any other way, but had the artistic skill to present themselves, and then sold not only their skills but also the instruments.
The piano accordion was being established just because of Pietro Darrow and Guido Darrow in vaudeville. My father changed my instrument to a piano keyboard.
The piano-style keyboard became such a craze in the United States that veteran vaudeville performer Pietro Frosini disguised his chromatic button instrument to look like a piano accordion when viewed from the audience.
For the rest of my lifetime, I think there's always going to be a bifurcation between chromatic accordions and piano accordions. I just don't think there's any way around that. Half the world plays piano, half the world plays chromatic.
And I play this type of accordion. In France, where I'm from, it's the type of accordion that everybody is playing. If you want an accordion, this is what you get in the store. So we don't have a particular name for it, we just call it accordion, but here it's called chromatic. The notes go, there's every note from half tone to half tone, and they go diagonal down this way, so I'm going to follow like that. This is like a chromatic scale. So you find accordion like that in France, in Italy. There are many, many different kinds of accordion in Italy, but they have a little bit of those. You find them in Serbia, you find them in Sweden, and of course you find them in Russia, but the fingering is different.
The Russian concert Bayan is arguably the most sophisticated accordion ever made. A full-size Bayan has a phenomenal 64-note range in the right hand and a 58-note range in the left, with a reinforced deep bass register for an amazing variety of sound and dynamics. It is the preferred instrument of many of the world's virtuoso players.
You can see there's no piano keys, it's just buttons.
Whether one plays a chromatic accordion or a piano accordion, there will probably be these switches above the keyboard called register switches, which often have instrument names on them. What are these switches all about?
The full-size accordion commonly has 4 sets of reeds on the right-hand side. They have the lowest one is called a bassoon. Then you have one which is an octave up, and that's called a clarinet. Then you have one that's an octave higher called a piccolo. Now you have another clarinet which is tuned deliberately a little bit sharp to create dissonance. And that reed is often called a flute, and the combination together is sometimes referred to as violin. As opposed to these switches are all various combinations of those different sets of 4 reeds. The bass machine on a full-size accordion has 120 buttons, which operate from a system, very clever system of axles and rods and pins to select out your chords or triads. The way this works is that you have 12 axles, which each open up a chord valve, and you have 12 axles which each through a cam open up a bass valve. Each one of these axles has a pin that comes up, and then the bass button has little cams on it that will select 3 of those pins, and by doing that they select out a chord by opening up 3 valves at a time. This system is called the Stradella system, named after the town of Stradella, which is a very old accordion building center in Italy.
The Stradella system looks complex inside, but is actually simple to play. The rows are arranged so that the most common chords for each key are right next to each other. But what if you wanted to play other chords than the preset ones provided? What if you wanted to play bass melodies in various octaves along with the melodies you're playing with the right hand? Pianos and organs can do this. Why not accordions? Well, that's where the freebase system comes in.
enables you to think as the left hand for the first time as being an equal partner of the right, and not the servant that has to hold down the rhythm section while the right hand gets to do the soloing.
If we want the accordion to be recognized, we've got to present the free bass and make it comparable to the piano keyboard.
Diatonic accordions, or button boxes, represent a large group of instruments, most commonly used in the world's folk music traditions. They have a direct resemblance to the very first accordions ever made, and their relatively small size and affordability made them a favorite with immigrants around the world. Each row of buttons on a diatonic plays in one key, and each button makes two separate pitches depending on bellows direction.
It's a very distinct type that we use, and it's necessary for our type of music. It's accompanied by a bajo sexto, a 12-string Mexican guitar, and that actually provides the bass accompaniment, and that's how it all started with polkas, cumbias, and rancheras back in the early 20s, 30s.
We play a Slovenian-style button accordion or button box, and it's similar to the German style and some of the other ones, with some notes changed in a way that, for the most part, constricts you to major keys. It's pretty much impossible to do a whole song in a minor key on these instruments. So, in my opinion, these instruments were made for really happy music.
The fiddle and the flute were the prime Irish instruments, and the accordion is a machine. So our work is to transcend the machine part of it and put flow into it rather than having a typewriter effect.
This is a single row, what we call a Cajun accordion, or French accordion. It has a lot of reeds, and it's a very powerful accordion for its size. There's 4 reeds per note, so it's almost like 4 accordions playing for each button, you know. And then you'll notice, too, that on piano accordions, you know, you have your treble switches here often on the grill. And we have treble switches, too, but they're on top of the accordion. If you're playing a 4-hour dance, you're going to kind of start sweating, you know, it gets hot. But yeah, it'll stand up to that too. So that's another reason I think this really took off and took the place of the fiddle in Louisiana music, because this is a sturdy instrument. You drop a fiddle, that's it.
MIDI accordions open you up to having all of the synthesizer world, the entire world of synthesizers. I mean, Yamaha, Roland, Korg, Kurzweil, Alesis, you name it. It's all yours. it's an accordion, but look at this, it sounds like an organ. Wow, is that cool?
MIDI is an acronym for Musical Instrument Digital Interface, a standard adopted in the early 1980s so that electronic instruments could communicate with each other. Using sampled sounds, MIDI accordions can sound like an accordion or anything else. They can use real reeds or be completely reedless.
The hybrid electronic and acoustic accordion started with instruments such as the Chromatic and other accordion organs, and moved on through into the 1980s to what we have here with the RH series accordion, which is the predecessor to the MIDI accordions. And this was the generator box that was used to produce the sounds from this particular accordion. This accordion is a concerto digital acoustic accordion produced by Accordions International in Salt Lake City. This particular instrument is a Pierre Maria accordion with the finest handmade reeds, but with the digital system invented by Paul Pasquale. This reedless accordion uses what is called physical behavior modeling, which is a proprietary technology of the Roland Corporation. This technology actually models various accordion reeds and other sounds. Here is accordion reeds in the left hand. Here's an upright bass. In the right hand, you can combine various sounds such as pianos, flutes. Here's an accordion. Here's a piano.
Well, in the 50s when I was growing up, the most visible aspect of the accordion was seeing the Lawrence Welk show on television and seeing Dick Contino on variety shows. You could see them practically every week on television when I was growing up. And that was my introduction to the accordion. That's how I got interested in playing in the first place, was seeing Dick Contino and Myron Florin on these shows. As the next generation discovered their own voice, which became rock and roll, they were no longer interested in this music of their parents who had come over from Europe. You know, Lawrence Welk is a prime example of that.
The champagne music of Lawrence Welk. I know if I don't play a solo or accordion for my friends in North Dakota, I'm going to be in trouble with them. And Myron, would you join me with your pan accordion, please? The 12th Street Rag. 1, 2, and
The Lawrence Welk Show was the longest-running musical variety show ever on television. And for over 3 decades, Lawrence Welk and the accordion became indelibly linked for anyone living in those times.
So eventually in the 60s, that music became considered sort of kitschy and campy, and whereas at one point you might have been playing Lady of Spain as a 16-year-old, thinking it was one of the greatest pieces of music you'd ever played in your life. If you were to be playing it as somebody in the 60s, you would probably be playing it with ironic detachment. I think that was although I must say there are probably still hundreds of people playing it as though it's the greatest piece ever written, so for some people that connection is still there.
Cotati, when they're playing Lady of Spain, I run in the other direction. I'm sorry. When I'm playing downtown, I play Lady of Spain only for one guy. And the only reason I do it because he's got tattoos and I think he'd hurt me.
So, who was responsible for Lady of Spain being associated with the accordion? Yes, it's this man, Dick Contino. In the late 1940s, Contino won the wildly popular Horace Heidt Talent Contest, playing his own lightning-fast arrangement of Lady of Spain, and he and the tune catapulted to nationwide fame.
Two guys about to be executed, and the warden says, well, you both have one last wish, you know. He turns to the first guy and he says, what's your last wish? He says, I'd like to hear Dick Contino play the accordion with the bellows shake, playing Lady of Spain. And the warden says, you got it. He turns to the second guy and says, what's your last wish? He says, execute me first. I had my formula. I could play Dark Eyes. I could play Limehouse Blues, Lover, any of the songs, where there was speed involved, and I had the formula, though. I would apply the formula. To me, it was like basic, the initial key, and then I'd go from simplicity, see? And I'd maybe go to a staccato effect while the horns are playing legato. Now I go to a glissando effect while they're playing staccato. And then another key change. Now we're into the bellow shake. So it was the applying the formula no matter what the song might be. Can you imagine doing the same thing forever?
Today, it's hard to believe the immense popularity of the accordion back in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. They were sold through common mail-order catalogs, and there were plenty of models to choose from. There were accordion academies throughout the country. Accordions and accordion lessons were sold door to door. Flamboyant performers were a hit in entertainment circles. Art Van Dam and others made the instrument acceptable to jazz music fans.
I heard somebody like Benny Goodman play clarinet, and I thought, why can't I play accordion like he plays clarinet?
And in the classical concert hall, the accordion was just starting to make inroads, due to the valiant efforts of the AAA, or American Accordionist Association.
In 1938, when I was teaching in my studio in New York City, a gentleman by the name of Sam Rowland came to me and posed the question if I thought the creation of an accordion association would be logical and desired. I said yes.
Anthony Galla-Rini spent his boyhood in vaudeville. He was a member of a musical family act and learned to play many instruments. However, the accordion was his favorite, and he spent his adult life promoting it as a serious instrument, even to playing classical solos in Carnegie Hall. He joined other professional players to help form the AAA.
the names of those days, like Pietro Bagnanti, Galla-Rini, Nunzio, the big names of the accordion industry, got together and formed the American Accordion Association for the betterment of the accordion. And that we needed literature, we needed stabilization and what an accordion really is, how many basses and how many treble keys, and the best of everything, and it made a big difference.
Carmen Carrozza was playing a lot of the pieces in concert halls. It did reach a national limelight, and the competitions were very valuable because they brought Steve Domingo to the forefront too, and he was playing on the Young People's Concert with Bernstein.
So, with all this great exposure and promise, what happened in the 1960s to change the future of the accordion?
The accordion did not seem to find its place within the rock and roll sphere of music. As we considered this problem and how to resolve it, one of the projects we undertook was to make a rock and roll accordion. And this instrument was called the Tiger Combo Accordion. It was put out by our firm Pancordion Incorporated. And it was a low-priced instrument which had a great visual appeal. It had a cutaway grill and a reverse-colored keyboard. It had the cutting edge that we felt rock and roll music would require.
Tiger accordion was an experiment many years ago where they made the switches work to play the fundamental and the fifths at one time, which I tried to sell to a few people from time to time when they wanted something very unusual, but it usually winds up that it was something weird.
And if I then vary the air pressure, it will vary as much as a good fat quarter tone.
Unfortunately, the Tiger wasn't a big seller, and most rock bands of the 60s never adopted the accordion. It was like a ghost town for a while for the lone accordionist who stuck with the instrument.
Then the instrument somehow became seen as almost a sight gag. I mean, you know, if somebody came walking onto a TV situation comedy with an accordion, it was good for a laugh just walking out.
Well, the truth is, when the subject of accordions is brought up in mixed company, there's a 10,000-pound elephant in the room, and that elephant dances the polka.
First point your left foot, then start to glide. Then point your right foot, swing to the side. Then twirl your partner, dip down below. Then clap your hands and you're all set to go. It's the hokey pokey polka, or the hokey tonky too. With a ricky-ticky rhythm, like a mockingbird in June. With a humpty-dumpty tempo and a hurdy-gurdy sound. It's a hokey pokey polka, they're playing all around.
A lot of polka music is a little corny.
Well, that corniness is a pleasure to some. Big Lou, the accordion princess, has her own polka band and was a founding member of the bands Polka Side and Those Darn Accordions. But, you might ask, where did the polka come from?
Well, the Czechs say it started in Czechoslovakia, and the Poles say it started in Poland. Polka literally means Polish girl. But it took over, it became a rage in the 1840s. I think in Paris it was huge, and it caught on in London, and polka dots are in fact named after the polka. The polkas are the easiest thing to play on the accordions. Polkas and waltzes are just a piece of cake. The biggest polka audience in the United States today is Norteño polkas. Polkas can be Lawrence Welk, or they can be wild, crazy, nutso dance music.
Though the accordion was in a low ebb of popularity during the 1960s and 70s, by the late 1980s, a quirky trend began. The accordion as outsider instrument, cool for being uncool.
That's cool, man. That's cool.
On the road for 4 days. Last night in Iowa City, put me in a haze. Byron Thorne, he was doing his act. He stole the show, and that's a natural fact. Up all night with Buck of the King. I gotta tell you, folks, I'm losing money, but that's alright.
As long as we can make it to the show tonight, we're an accordion man. We're an accordion man. We're coming to your town, we'll help you polka down. We're an accordion band.
Accordionista raids consisted of everybody in the band descending upon restaurants en masse, unannounced, running in, playing Lady of Spain, much to everyone's surprise. Just kind of in, hit 'em, out.
I've always liked to dress strange, but I've never had the personality to go with it. I mean, I was very shy early on. Now I dress strange, I don't care. It's called the privilege of maturity. I'm an entertainer. Now, if I didn't have the accordion, then I'm just another local Santa Cruz freak. The accordion keeps me legitimate because I'm a musician. One outfit I wore to Cotati one year is called Making a Point. Everybody called it the tree because it was sort of in greens and fuchsias and turquoises, and you can't tell what I am. I mean, there's a person under there. There's an accordion. You can do anything on an accordion, I think. I've certainly tried.
Well, we can, you know we can. Well, we can, you know we can. Let's get to the Lord back.
It's such a happy instrument.
And some players are making a journey into the outer regions of sound.
Grandpa's been gone for over a year now. You know I saved his accordion and learned how to play it.
The accordion's been good to me. It's been a big part of my life.
Throughout history, a musical instrument survives because it has a distinctive sound and great dynamic expression. The accordion possesses these qualities. Though we don't know what lies in the future for the accordion, one thing is clear: the power of the steel reed will live on.